There's power in taking a photograph. There's power in being an artist.
It's the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Ayanacone, and today I have with me my amazing wife, Stacy Ayanacone, and
Nick Carver.
Nick Carver.
Yeah,
Welcome.
from YouTube.
From the YouTubes.
You're a few other places. It's funny. I didn't even know you had a YouTube. I knew you had an Instagram, and which is funny because I think it's probably the opposite for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah, well,
I'm not big on social media, so.
My Instagram bio says you probably know me from YouTube. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it probably does go the other way. But yeah, good to know at least one person found me on Instagram first.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm one of those people that just like to have very limited social media. So.
Good for you.
Too much. It's too much. I'm bucking against it. But like I get
It's
like
a good way to live.
yeah, I mean, I understand it and I know we need it and it's important, but at the same time, it's like, it's a little much. It's a little much. Like, I don't like it to be in every single part of my life. So try to limit it a little bit.
That's Stacy.
That's me. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate
thank you.
it. Yeah. We know you have a lot of
pleasure.
people that, do watch your videos and go to your Instagram, obviously. And you have a lot of classes and things and people get to know you, but we just want to sit down and get to talk to you a little bit more and get to know, kind of the man behind all of the videos and all the stuff that you do, just sort of who you are as a person. So, I was looking at, obviously, some of your videos on YouTube, and I saw that you had a solo show coming up. And I just wanted to ask, how's that going, the planning? Because I believe that's right around the corner, correct?
Yeah, very much right around the corner. It's going good. I finally picked out all the prints that I want to have. I got it all laid out, and I need to do a bunch of scans now to get the high-res files going and then make the prints. I'm going to be doing... I got to do one test print because I'm thinking of doing a different paper for some of the pieces that I've never printed on before. So I got to test that out. And then, and then it's just a matter of getting my printer going and then getting my framer going. And I've been in touch with them to find out timelines, but it's just been a lot of making sure I'm not going to get into a difficult situation by letting a little too much time come in. So it's exciting. It's really cool. The planning process is fun, like laying out all the prints on the wall and everything. That's been really cool. So, so it's moving along. It's getting there.
That's in September when that happens?
Yeah.
And that's going to be open?
September 15th is the opening reception.
Okay.
And, I'm I've already cleared this with the gallery, but I'm going to make it open to people on YouTube, the reception, which may get crazy. I don't know.
Interesting.
So open as in come in person, or you're...
Yeah, as come to the reception. Okay. So it's I have to work out. It's going to have to be an RSVP thing, so I got to get details on how people can RSVP and then put it out on YouTube, and then I want to make sure I let everyone close to me know about it first so that they can RSVP first, and then I'll put it out on YouTube. And one guy already emailed me. He may fly out from the East Coast, and I'm like, dude, that's insane. That is not worth it. I am not worth that flight. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think I will be able to kind of make it a little bit of a meet and greet. But we'll see how many people they can accommodate and how many people actually want to come. I may be, for all I know, I'll put it out on YouTube and like 20 people will be like, yeah, I'll be there. So I may be blown out of proportion to my head, but I just want to make sure the place can handle.
Oh, absolutely.
Handle me putting it out on YouTube.
Yeah. Where is this going to be?
So it's this cultural center, which is a historic home in San Clemente, California, which is at the south end of Orange County. So it's kind of between Orange County and San Diego. And it's a coastal town. It's a beautiful town. And this place overlooks the ocean and really, really cool property. So it's a beautiful place to do it. And I'm real big into architecture, as people would probably know from from what I like to shoot. And it's really cool. 1927, I think it was, Spanish style, casa estate type deal. So really, really beautiful. So I'm excited to have my first solo exhibit be there.
That's
Nice.
exciting.
How many pieces are in there? Is it going to be quite a bit? These all large format, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's 29 pieces.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a lot of wall space, man. It's
yeah.
What's your
and big pieces too. So it's 29. Several of them are very large. The biggest one I think is 72 inches wide. It's panoramic, so 6 feet wide. And then the next size after that, I think, is like 42 inches wide. So big pieces. It's very expensive to make all these because I have to make 24 of them. I only have 5 made currently in stock. So yeah, I've been having, a little just minor panic attacks about what the money I'm going to have to spend on this over the next 2 months. So, but I mean, you got to spend money to make money. So hopefully they sell. I'm going in assuming nothing's going to sell just because that's how I operate. I keep my expectations low.
You have to do that, yeah.
Yeah, because if I go in like, as long as I sell 10 pieces, I'll be okay. It's like, oh man, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So
yeah.
So it's a lot of pieces to make, but I mean, anyone who watches my channel knows that I am just absolutely in love with making prints. It is truly what I love about photography the most. Seeing a framed finish piece that you've put all this work into is without a doubt the biggest high in photography for me. So just being able, like having an excuse to make all these prints, just knowing I'm going to get to see all of them framed up is worth the expense, whatever it's going to be. So so it's nice having an excuse to make prints.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a treat to see your work finished at the final stage of it, existing up on a wall.
Oh yeah.
So
And I think you'll probably get quite a few people. I think it'll be more than 20. So I think you'll be okay.
I hope you're right.
Well, if you got someone, that one guy.
I hope you're right.
You got at least one dude from the East Coast coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, if it's, I don't know, if someone flies out from a far distance, I'm just going to feel bad.
I'm sure they're coupling it with something else,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like I would be worth that, but maybe I would be in their mind. So if someone does put that much effort into coming out to see me, I hope I don't disappoint meeting them. So,
well, I think if they're investing the money in the ticket, they probably already like your work. So you probably got 90% of the work's done for you.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume they like my work. They may not like me when they it's more what I'm worried about, because I don't know, like when you asked me to do this podcast, my first inclination every time someone asks me to do a podcast is to do it. And then my first inclination after I do the podcast is don't ever do a podcast. Because so I always say I'm never going to do another podcast, because it's this weird thing where people know me from YouTube, and on YouTube I can be pretty relaxed and natural because I have the ability to do multiple takes. I know what I'm going to be saying most of the time because it's I'm planning the video ahead of time. So it's relatively relaxed, and so I come across a certain way. But every time I've done a podcast, I kind of clam up because it's just, I'm not that good conversationally thinking off the top of my head. So I tend to listen to the podcast afterward, and I'm like, oh, dude, you sounded like an idiot, or you sounded boring, or you sounded like a completely different person than your YouTube channel. So I went into this one basically just deciding, okay, I'm going to pretend we're not doing a podcast, and I'll just talk, and I'll just pretend I'm doing a YouTube video or whatever. And hopefully I'll come across a little more how I actually am, or at least how I am in YouTube. So
no, you're coming across just fine.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of overthink it. I did that first. I'm like, you know what? I'm just me. I'm just going to be me. And like, if people don't like that, okay, that's perfectly fine. But no, I don't think there's probably that big of a discrepancy of like, just randomly talking versus your setup videos, and having that is still the same person behind all of it. So fundamentally, you are not a different person.
Yeah, people in my life razz me about my YouTube persona though.
Yeah, that's
because they know me personally, and then they see my YouTube videos and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got your YouTube voice on there, huh?" It's like, all right,
you have to, honestly. I mean, if that's your direction that you're going, you have to present yourself differently. And everybody's after this sort of, I guess, more cinematic, friendly version of people on YouTube. There's a certain sort of personality there. People are afraid of what it's like to be a human being sometimes. Yeah.
Well, also, if I was planning ahead of time what I'm going to say when I meet with my friends, I would probably sound just like my YouTube persona.
True.
The difference is when you're talking to people, you don't think ahead of time what you're going to talk about generally. But, when I'm doing a YouTube video, I'm obviously planning out, okay, this is what I want to talk about. This is the information I'm trying to get across to people. And, so it ends up creating a little bit of a different persona, I'm sure. But
that's a completely different kind of thing. It's like your work personality versus your at home personality. They're very different. Like you have your separate groups of friends that know you one way and then another group that knows you this way. And it's like weird when the groups get together because you're like, oh, you guys think of me as this person. You think of me as this person. And then they match. And it's like, that's interesting. But I think everybody
your customer service voice and then you got your husband voice.
Yeah. It's like, this is work. This is work me. This is me. Like, there's a blend over there that goes across, but no, I mean, everybody has that. It's just hard when you're a little bit more in the limelight and you have, a lot of people that follow you because they don't get to know the other part of you. So it gets a little awkward to be like, oh gosh, they're going to like me. Like they're going to be okay with that. And I'm like I said, I think it's perfectly fine. So I saw that you were in, you obviously like taking pictures of the Southwest for sure and architecture and different kind of buildings and stuff. I saw you were in Arizona not that long ago, or kind of our neck of the woods. You were out. So you're
my favorite state, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I love Arizona. I mean, my wife and I got married in Sedona. We've gone there frequently. I have family going pretty far back in Arizona. Like my great uncle was on Phoenix PD, and my mom grew up there, and it's just I don't know, I love the state. I love the terrain, but I also just love the people. Everyone I've met there has been much more, I don't know, not California-y. How else to put it? California, especially Orange County. Orange County has a little bit of what New York has, I think. In that there's just so many people, you can't really put that much energy into being friendly to everybody. So it gets to be a little bit of, we don't have that like New York charm that comes with it, but of speaking your mind and I'm looking out for you and everything. Like, we don't really have that upside to it. It's just kind of, you just don't really talk to your neighbors much. So there's not a lot of warmth, I guess. It's not like people are mean or anything. It's just there's not that kind of Midwest warmth, but there's also, you get more of the New York kind of, everyone's just kind of minding their own business. But you go to a place like Arizona, like I went to Ajo and Gila Bend and stuff, and people were just kind of much more laid back about what I was doing. And I go out there with these big cameras. I got a big 6x17 view camera. So I got that, and I got my big full brim hat, and I'm wearing this loud Hawaiian shirt. And I'm just like, I'm attracting a lot of attention when I do these things. And on top of that, I have a video camera pointed at me and I'm talking what looks like to myself. And so I get self-conscious about that anyway. But when I'm in a town that I'm not familiar with, I get extra self-conscious. But I found that in both places, everyone's just kind of minding, hey, cool, man, what are you doing? What you up to? And I saw you in town, and you're taking pictures, huh? It's like, it's much more laid back, I guess, compared to what I'm used to around here.
Arizonans are loose. I think it's the heat. I think the heat's like kind of burned us all out.
You have to have patience if you're going to deal with a Phoenix summer.
Yeah, we just don't have time to like.
I think
it's fine.
We're at 115 today, 119.
I think it's supposed to go up to 117. I think is what I saw last when I was looking.
Brutal.
So it's a little brutal out there right now. Yeah, it's interesting with our seasons as far as being able to take photos.
Yeah.
So when you want to go out and weather can be a real hindrance, especially depending on where you're at in the country. And here,
Yeah.
it's definitely a part of
Kind
that.
of have to take
It's
a
like,
hiatus.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Huh.
definitely have to shift gears in the summer here. Winter's nice, but yeah.
Oh yeah, fall and winter. I love Arizona that time of year.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
It's gorgeous.
It's absolutely
Oh, yeah.
perfect, and that's kind of the shame of it too, because that's when we're the most populated. Because we get so many snowbirds and so many folks come in. We have like a whole amazing amount of Canadians that come down to visit us. But it's you kind of want to take photos when there's not all the people around, because it leaves all these, like, there's these new opportunities of buildings and things that you're seeing because there's less people. But then again, it's like 110, so you got to go like set up the shot and then go back in your car and like get in the air conditioning and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm all right. And just take like all the
Yeah.
water in the whole world and make sure you're okay. I know I went out taking photos one day, and it was like 2020, I think, and we had like some of the, like the airport shut down because it got too hot, and I think it was like 119, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go shoot today. And like at the end of the day, I'm like, why did I do that? But
My
at the
film
same
melted.
time, yeah, my film melted. Yeah, it can be really, really aggressive in Arizona, but that's sort of the beauty of Arizona. Also, is like its aggressiveness, and a
Yeah.
lot of that kind of comes through in the photos. And then there's obviously things that you can't see anywhere else in the world. I tell people, a lot of people kind of take for granted a lot of the views that seem normal to us here,
Yeah.
with the saguaros
Oh,
and
yeah.
things. It's like they only exist in like this one swath of, land that you're just not going to see.
It's a really small area, and so many people associate that with like American desert
Mhm.
scenery. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, driving all the way there, you won't see it, and
Yeah.
driving past it, you're not going to see it. Like it's only in that little pocket, and
Yeah.
it's so iconic. I think I would imagine a lot of people outside of the U.S. or have never visited here, they probably kind of blur the lines of like Texas and Arizona.
Yeah.
You get kind of that
Yeah.
that Texas vibe, and there might be picturing kind of Arizona scenery, but it's so different, and they're two very different things. And Arizona has such a specific, unique feel about it that I love. It's so timeless, for one. I mean, you got everything from old westerns to modern stuff, and it all kind of looks the same. It still has the Arizona vibe, no matter where you look. And Arizona too. I mean, you got the whole northern part of Arizona, Flagstaff and pine trees, and
Oh yeah.
it's such a cool state.
Yeah.
I probably should be living there, if I'm being honest. You tend to put down roots wherever you grow up.
Yeah.
We have what is it, 4 different biomes here? So
Mhm.
you have your tundra up in Flagstaff, your arid desert. I mean, I think we're one of the only states that has that. So there's, for what it is, it's pretty diverse here, and unique at the same time.
Yeah,
A pretty small area too, because people point that out about California. You can go to the beach in one day and mountains in the same day. It's like, yeah, it's a big state though. I mean,
it takes a while to get there. Yeah, it's like it's like you can get to the beach, but depending on where you're at in California, like if you look on the map, you're like, no, California's enormous. Like it takes a while. Yeah, Phoenix gets a little bit like that, because when you feel a little bit like you're on an island, because there's the city proper is very spread out, but there's a lot here. But as soon as you leave, it's just nothingness for hours. Either way, like any way you go, it's like just absolutely nothingness, which is sort of interesting. It's like we don't belong here. We're not supposed to be here, but here we are in the middle. So I assume you grew up in California and you sort of set roots early.
Yeah, born and raised in Orange County. And I grew up in a city called Irvine, which very master planned, very kind of cookie cutter home type place. And I absolutely hated that when I was growing up. I've grown to very much appreciate it, and I'm glad my parents raised me there. But growing up, I just wanted nothing more than to get out of Orange County. And then I kind of couldn't, because I didn't. Most people get out of their hometown by going to college, and I didn't go to college. I graduated high school a semester early because I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I hated it. And then didn't go to college. I just started working, and I was saving up money from my day job while living at home with my parents to try and become a photographer. So I was basically just working to build up a savings account so I could pursue my dream. And I did that. And I had to live at home a lot longer than most people in my class. And then, your roots just keep going deeper and deeper. I opened my business in Orange County, so I kind of am now roped in there, and I'm getting clients in Orange County, and so I'm kind of roped in there. And at the time I was a little resentful for it, but looking back on it now, I'm so happy I didn't end up anywhere else. I freaking love Orange County. I moved from Irvine to the city of Orange, which has a lot more character. It's a much, much older part of Orange County. It's not nearly as corporate. You don't have the master plan communities and everything. And there's so much more character here. And I just, I'm like living exactly where I want to live. And so it's actually kind of fortunate I didn't end up leaving when I was younger.
That's great. And then you're still really close to Arizona, technically speaking. Like, you can still drive in. It seems like you're always driving in.
That's the thing. It's perfect. I'm not far from Utah and Arizona and New Mexico and all these places. I can fly there real easy. I can even drive there easy. So it's a perfect place for me.
Sweet spot to be.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah. Speaking of driving, a lot of your videos seem to imply that you're by yourself for most of these trips. Is that pretty accurate?
Yep.
Do you get lonely, or do you work better if no one's around you while you're doing it? Do you think?
I work way better solo.
Yeah.
That's actually why. So my day job kind of is I do architectural photography for commercial properties. And it's the perfect job for me because that's also a solo job. I just get kind of released at these properties to go take pictures by myself. And, people ask all the time, hey, can I come assist for you? And it's like, I say it much nicer than this, but no chance in hell. I want nobody with me. I want my earbuds in if I'm working for a client. If I'm out in the field, I just want to be alone with my thoughts. But I'm very much a lone wolf in that. It does get very difficult camping solo, which anyone who saw my recent videos on YouTube and then the longer version, which is the extended play on my website, it had a little bit of a difficult time mentally, out there camping solo. And that's always a challenge for me because I kind of have this dichotomy of I love being alone frequently, but is like as soon as nightfall comes in, it's hard to overcome the reptilian urges of, it's not safe being alone out here. And all that stuff kind of starts kicking in, and it can, that wheel can start rolling down the hill a little too fast. Sometimes I can't really catch up to it and I start spinning out. But so I'm always glad I did, and I always enjoy it the next morning. So I continue to do it.
Yeah, makes it worth it. Well, I mean, you can have a panic attack by yourself, so no one sees it. So you're freaking out in the middle
of videoing it.
Yeah,
like help.
It actually would be ideal if I was not videoing it. Then it'd be perfect. I could just go have a little mental breakdown, curl up in the fetal position for a few hours, and then come out of it. But
have your own little
talk to a camera while I'm doing it.
You have your own little YouTube section, Naked and Afraid, but photography.
Photography and afraid.
Photography and afraid.
I think that's
exposed and afraid.
Yeah. I suppose that's a part of I believe, like, at least for me, like looking at your videos, the appeal of a lot of your videos, because you come across as very human, and like this is, you're not making it look like it's an easy thing to do. You're making it look like, this is work. This is planned out. This isn't just something you just do on a whim and go out and like snap and like go do that. You're putting a lot of effort in there. And it's like evident when I saw your truck. I'm like, the supplies that you have on the truck show like there's a lot of planning that's happening here, because you're obviously setting yourself up for, the best experience that you can have. So I think you're eliminating a lot of that if someone rushed out there, and just put a camera in a sack lunch in the back of their car and went out and tried to overnight it. I think they're going to get a much different, result.
And admittedly, I go a little overboard on the planning. Part of it's because I do actually like that part of, life in general. I plan out everything. So I enjoy planning, but the number one compliment I get from people, especially like via email, where they're really taking the time to let me know, is that people do appreciate that I show the shitty side of it, and I show the challenges that come with it. And I try to not have an ego about any of it. I think with YouTube videos, there's this natural inclination to just kind of do the social media model where you're only showing the best of anything that happened, or completely fabricating some fake drama to try and make it interesting. But I've kind of just decided, whether it's good or whether it's bad, I'm just going to show what happened. And it makes it very stressful when I'm filming it, because it feels like nothing good is coming. It feels like I'm not going to get a good video, because if it's going terribly, I'm in that mindset of it's going terribly. So therefore I think the video is going terribly also. If it's going well, I think it's probably just going to be boring, because it's like there's no challenge, there's no story or anything. So it's kind of hard to do it that way, but I'm always happy with the result, and people seem to appreciate that. I'm willing to show that I'm having a mental breakdown, and I'm willing to show that I'm not happy with this photo or anything like that. I think there might be a thing with YouTube and social media where people are just so inundated with people showing their best parts of their life that it might be a little refreshing to see, like, oh, Nick has shitty times too. That's cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Nick gets homesick too, and he's a full grown man. No, I feel better about. So I'm continuing to include that stuff because people seem to be able to relate to it. And although it can feel vulnerable when I'm putting it out there, getting that kind of feedback from people makes it worth it. So
yeah, it's a much more honest feel to it, where you're not just putting on a presentation. It's like, it's well produced, but at the same time, you can see there's definitely a human behind there and giving us, like, this is them, they're putting it out. You had a quote, which one of your videos, I think it was the Arizona one, and you said your artistic drive is calloused, which like really hit me. I was like, everybody kind of gets that, but just to be like, to say, hey, you were still out there though. You were still doing it, and you still pushed through, even knowing that you were feeling not quite in the mood to take the photos, but you're still pushing through that, which was, refreshing to see. Because sometimes with a lot of artistic endeavors, you don't always feel in that mood for that. You're not always like, on point, but you still keep kind of pushing through. And then that's when I think that's a lot of the time when you find out the most surprising parts about your work sometimes, when you're not in those moods and you're like, man, I was having a bad day that day, or I thought that photo was terrible. And then you look at it and you're like, that was kind of some of my better stuff. Like, I think you get a different view just when you're in that mood as well.
Thinking about it more afterwards and stuff, and the analogy of, the artistic drive being calloused or your creativity being callous, it's a perfect metaphor for me, because calluses are ultimately good, and it's a way to protect yourself from the environment around you. So a creativity being calloused, it's harder to break through it, but it is protecting you from pursuing, I don't know, lesser creative pursuits. Like, I'm not going to take the weak photos because I'm calloused. I require a much stronger inspiration, and that makes fewer photos, but I think the photos tend to be stronger photos because I'm only able to let through the stuff that is really inspiring me. And then you start to create your best work in that scenario. So, pursuing photography so many years, that callus has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And one way to look at that is like, oh, that sucks. It's so much harder to get inspired. And so I don't have that enthusiasm. But, I lift weights too, and you get calluses on your hands from lifting weights, and you need those. That's the only way you can lift more weights, is if your hands are tough to grab the bar and get that, that grip on your hands that would have shredded you 6 months ago, but now you can do it. So I think it's really the same with art, because, I taught photography in person for many years, lots of one-on-one, lots of group classes. And so I've met with like every possible type of photographer, type of person you can imagine. I have, I think I don't know, it's like 2,000 previous private lesson clients or something. So I've met with that many people. And there are definite people who reach a certain point in their creativity and they never get past it because they're comfortable with it and they're happy with it. And their work isn't good. It's not anything groundbreaking. It's nothing that's gonna push the art form forward in any way because it's just derivative of everyone else's work. To put it simply, it's just bad elementary level photography. But they have no drive to get better than that. And so they'll never create better work. And I think if you are in a mode where you want to constantly get better, you have to get a little calloused because that makes you unsatisfied with your current work. And if you're unsatisfied with your current work, you're going just the right amount, not too much. But if you're unsatisfied with your work just the right amount, you'll work harder to make the next one better. Now, you don't want to get too unsatisfied because then you just get discouraged and you don't take photos. But you need just the right amount of, that's not quite what I wanted. And then next time, I think you can work a little bit better at it.
Yeah, that's a good, just for life in general. I think a lot of people that you see in the world that really kind of excel with a lot of things, like, oh, how did they get there? It's because they've been pushing and pushing and pushing every single day. That doesn't just happen like overnight. It's like an incremental, no, I'm going to do better on this next thing.
You definitely have to find that whatever it is that helps you improve. Looking at your own work and saying, what can I do better? And what is it? What's lacking in this? And then, for me, at least, I question, okay, is it a technical thing or is it a creative thing? If it's technical, what was it? And it's the same with processing your own film, making prints in a dark room, riding a bike, whatever. It's something that you have to improve upon, and you have to identify what's lacking or where the issues are. More people, I think, get discouraged and try something else because they think it's so easy. They see a lot of stuff on social media and just seem, oh, this is easy, I can do it. Then they go and try and do it, and it's like, you can do it. You just have to commit to it. You have to continue to do it, and you have to evolve with it. And that for me, I'll look at somebody's photo and I'll tell them, what is it that you don't like about the photo, more so than what it is that I don't like about the photo. They'll ask for advice, and I'll tell them, I don't know, what is it that you want to change in this, and what can change? And then if they don't know, but they know something's off, then you inform them on how to make those improvements. And anyways, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. But
no, that makes sense. That's good. That's a good approach. Yeah. People ask me for critiques of their photos, and I generally never give them.
Yeah.
And, it's just partly because of my personal philosophy with photography. I don't seek critiques, and not anymore. And once I stopped seeking critiques, that's when my work got better.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the right approach. Just asking them, what don't you like about it?
Right.
And what do you wish it was doing that it's not doing? And then someone who's seasoned can probably say, well, the way you would get it to do that is by implementing this technique or implementing that compositional thing. But, it's tough when you're starting out in photography, or at least, and starting out is a very broad term. I feel like I was starting out 15 years into it. But when you're starting out in photography, it's difficult because you don't know what you don't know, for one. True. But you also can't even articulate what you want and what you're trying to do. It's this very nebulous thing of like, oh, I just like that, and I want that, but you can't really articulate what it is about that thing that you're really drawn to. And then if you can't articulate what you're really drawn to, you can't really figure out how to do it, because you can't, reverse engineer the mechanisms to make it happen. So it's difficult for a long time, or at least it was for me for a long time. And letting go is kind of the best thing that worked for me, and kind of letting the process manage itself and just doing the next step. But yeah, the seeking critiques can be a little rough, and then giving critiques can be very rough, because you don't want to discourage people, for one. but also what the hell do I know? Like,
it's very
their work
subjective
and-
as well. There's
totally.
some people that are really into like shooting Holgas, and you know, you show that to a fine art photographer, they're going to be like, what am I looking at? Like, this is awful.
Yeah.
Versus someone that's really into like, alternative processes and like Holga work, and they see, oh no, that looks completely different. That's amazing what you did with that Holga. So it's so subjective, especially with photography, because photography has so many avenues that you can go down, and we're all shooting for a different reason. And we're all shooting, like we may all be shooting, say, landscape, but we're all standing there for a completely different reason, for a different result, be it, the process or, the end result, or we're just trying to like market, this thing that we're taking a photo. There's just so many pieces to it. So yeah, whenever it comes to like criticizing others' work, that's incredibly difficult. And I would never in a million years want to step in and be like, oh no, your work's terrible, because it might be amazing. It's just my taste. And what I look at is completely different than what someone else is seeing that at. So I think anyone, that's looking to improve their photography, I think it's more of a improve it for you. Go after what you makes you happy to do it. Because if you find that, that's important. And, it's a hard thing. A lot of people have a hard time getting over that through, in general, life. You grow up and you're a kid and having like the little cliques, and like, being included feels really important, and you want to feel like you're a part of a community. So it's always hard to like be able to say, you know what, I'm just going to do this for me, and whatever anyone says about me, whatever. And if they like it and they come along with me, awesome. But yeah, that's a tough lesson to learn. I know a lot of people, especially younger photographers, have a hard time with that, because it's not just photography that they're having a hard time with that. They're having a hard time with that just as a general life. It's like everyone you talk to, and once you start to hit 30, 40, people start, losing grasp of what anyone else cares about them. It's like, you know what?
It's the best part about getting older.
It really is. Yeah. There's a lot of like stuff that's like good and bad, but I always make the joke. I'm like, when I turned, 40, like I gave out my last, shit about everything. And then the older I get, and every year that goes by, I'm like approaching 50. And I'm like, man, I wish I could go back in time and like have the attitude that I have today about life.
Oh yeah.
And implement it, because I feel like I was holding my own self back, and I didn't even know I was doing it. I'm like, all that potential. And I had so many things I could have done that I just held back from doing because I was afraid of being judged by someone else, or it wouldn't be good enough. I'm like, that was just silly talk. Like, you don't really, it's weird. You get that life lesson, later on in time, but there's really I don't think you have to kind of learn that organically. I think it's hard just to tell a kid like, oh no, don't worry about anybody.
Yeah,
you
definitely can't be told
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because you get told it your whole life. Everyone does. Every kid does.
Mm-hmm.
I got told that. Like, oh, you can't worry about the haters, man. It's like, yeah, easier said than done when you're, you know, when you're 16.
Yeah. The horror of high school is like a completely different.
Yeah. Case in point. That's why I left a semester early. Like it's not good. But yeah, that getting older is generally great. I love getting older in most every way. Like you're more comfortable in your own skin. You have a lot more stuff figured out. You're less worried about what everyone else is doing around you. It's a lot calmer. It's a lot easier. There's downsides that come with it, of course. The body doesn't hold up so well.
Physical sense is not so great.
Yes. It's like if you could chart it, it's like you got a downtrend on your body, you got an uptrend on your mind. It's just it's a trade-off.
Absolutely. So, there's some sweet spot in there. I feel like it was like, I don't know, maybe 41 or something. Where I was like, oh, this is a peak me. It's all downhill.
Like 18 months ago for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely hit some sort of the peak in there.
Yeah, I guess the thing for me would be that, you know, for people who want to get into photography or are doing photography, they need to learn to define themselves more and respect themselves more. Appreciate other people's work, of course, but if you're going to be a photographer who's trying to build something for themselves, don't go after what everybody else is doing. And I mean, there's so many people that just insta repeat. Like, I took the same picture, but you know, mine looks slightly different. But you know, I don't know. That's my perspective. But if that's your thing, that's your thing. You know.
Well, because I've made fun of that previously, like shooting Mesa Arch at sunrise, and it's like there's this line of photographers all with their tripod set up and all doing the same thing. Yeah. And I've made fun of that, but then I've kind of thought more about it. Well, they're doing it for a different reason than I do it. Like they're not trying to make the most unique picture they've ever seen. They're not trying to create a certain unique vibe about their work. They're not trying to communicate something about themselves. They're playing that game of finding these iconic places and getting their best version of it. True. And that's fine.
True.
That's fun for them. And those people are great for like workshops and stuff like that, because they're into the activity of like getting together with other photographers and going out to these places. Oh yeah, I want to shoot that tree in Oregon that everyone shot. And I want to shoot that waterfall that everyone shot. And I want to shoot that arch that everyone shot. And it's easy for me to like scoff at that. Yeah.
True.
You think you're going to get something unique there, but I'm playing a different game. It's a different thing for me.
True.
So I can't fault them for doing that. They're probably having more fun. They got a lot less like artistic angst and tortured artists going on, because they're just out there for the fun of taking pictures of this cool thing. But meanwhile, I'm in the fetal position in Arizona because I'm not happy with the first roll that I took, because I think it's falling short of my artistic potential and my artistic drive is now calloused. Like they're probably having a lot more fun.
True.
But it's a different goal.
True.
That's all. So like I have a certain goal to my photography, and that's what I have to pursue. And I can't expect anyone else to want that same goal or try and do the same thing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, my thing is, please buy film so it doesn't go away.
Yes.
Yeah, we just like
That's the moral of the story.
Continue to buy film so the demand never drops, and they say, you know what, we're just gonna close the shop. You know.
Yeah. In that case, some of the folks that don't maybe shoot as like, they shoot more thoughtfully and not as much film, but the people that are just blasting, they're the ones keeping the rest of us going. So they can keep going. They could keep like just buying up all the film and shooting all the crappiest photos they want to. Like, hopefully you do that.
Spray and prayers are subsidizing my photography.
Yeah, exactly.
I take one photo.
I was going to say you come across as definitely the opposite of the spray and pray. I mean, I'm assuming you're still obviously taking more photos than, you know, what you're showing necessarily in the video, but at the same time, you have a lot of patience, it seems, to set up a shot and like get the shot that you're looking for. What's the longest you've waited for like one specific shot that you've like, I want this. This is what I want. How long are you willing to go? Like, and how long have you gone to get like the shot? It's
measured more in repeat attempts than like the actual time I'm there, because the patience is rooted in a pretty strong anxiety, which is probably not healthy, but I've learned to channel it into, you know, making photos that are I'm happy with. But it's an anxiety of wanting the picture to be a certain way, and if it's not that certain way, then I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try it again. And I have a limit to that, of course, but you know, I took this shot in here in, I think it was Anaheim. That was just a tire shop, and I wanted to shoot it at dawn. And I went back to that thing, I think half a dozen times, attempting it every time. I brought my gear every time. I wasn't just, you know, checking it out. And there was always something. The parking lot was being repaved. Didn't want to shoot it then. There was a car in the parking lot I didn't like. Didn't shoot it then. The lights didn't turn on when I hoped they would. I didn't shoot it then. So I keep going back and back and back. And I think the longest like time frame on that is I shot a laundromat in one of the coastal towns here, and it didn't come out the way I wanted it the first time. I realized that the only way I was going to be able to get it the way I wanted, I would have to wait for a different time of year when the sunrise was at a different time, because as it related to the business hours and all that. So I ended up coming back 6 months later and doing it again. So it's a lot of that kind of thing. Yeah. So I really try and once I have that itch to photograph something a certain way, I make sure it's fully scratched before I move on. And that can mean a lot of repeat attempts. It also means I don't take that many photos, which is the only thing I don't like about it. Is I don't create a whole lot of photos in the course of a year.
Yeah.
But the ones I do create, I'm generally very happy with. So
Yeah, you're thinking it out. It seems like you take a special consideration for lighting. I've noticed that that's like seems to be almost your biggest factor is your lighting. You want that lighting to be right there.
Yeah, and especially if I'm shooting buildings, the ratios between the artificial light and the ambient light, I'm real stickler for. And that's gotten more that way over the years, just because I've learned to understand it better. And so then I kind of know what I want better and that kind of thing. But I mean, the lighting sets the mood entirely, and the quality of the shadows sets the mood entirely. And it's such an integral, important part to the photos. And I happen to be very drawn to magic hour or twilight, whatever you want to call it. And that means at best I'm getting one photo a day. So
yeah, I was going to say, especially for
that's if I'm shooting every day.
Yeah, especially for
definitely not.
Arizona, because Arizona we're blazing a lot of the time without clouds most of the time, and then you have that just end of the day where everything looks like a gorgeous, or even the beginning of the day, like you get that morning light, which is also nice. And that middle of the day, that's hard when and I know a lot of photographers are kind of limited by their schedule to go out, and I'm like, well, this is what I got. Like, this is what I got to work with. And I know places like Arizona make that incredibly difficult, because if your only times to go out are, middle of the day, you're working with like the most insane brightness that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, we joke about it, like, for our beginner class, like when people don't understand anything, like we bring up Sunny 16 as a way to be like, hey, this is a good way for you to like kind of transition into figuring this out. And I'm like, but we're not really 16. I'm like, we're
22 here.
We're 22, probably above that. Like, it's just not, the lighting here can make it very, very difficult. But when you find it, it's really great, but it's such a fleeting window of time.
Yeah.
So I can see exactly why you have like, the limited amount of shots that you have, because if lighting's super important, there's a lot of parts of the day and time that you're not even bothering with shooting. Did you find that with time? Like, you took a lot of photos where you're like, ugh, the lighting, or did you just know from like, the lighting has to be there?
I kind of learned pretty quick that like landscapes don't look too good middle of the day, high noon. I luckily figured that out pretty quick, but I was just shooting very amateur, basic, high saturation landscapes. I mean, I thought they were the best pictures in the world, of course, at the time, but they're pretty lame, derivative, colorful landscapes. And so that meant shooting everything at sunset. So I was shooting everything at sunset, and I was only really shooting it if there was like cloud cover that picked up a bunch of color and made the sunset really pop and all that. So I kind of got in a habit of only going out to take pictures if the weather was just right to where I'm going to get color at that sunset, and then I'm going to get my epic colors, and then I'll be able to do my wide angle and all that. And I eventually hit a crash and moved on from that style. And I kind of started to play with, well, what kind of pictures can I get in what I used to think was ugly light? Like, what can I make work with this harsh lighting I'm dealing with? And so I started doing more desert shots and abandoned buildings and stuff like that, and kind of using the harsh shadows to my benefit. And then I was able to create some stuff that actually worked in, I wouldn't say high noon, middle of the day, but kind of more the shoulders of the day where the sun's low, but it's still pretty harsh. And, I was able to do more of that and getting some good results. And then started playing a lot more with proper dusk, twilight, magic hour, 15 minutes after sunset kind of deal. And started shooting buildings, which those look really good at that time. So it kind of evolved over time. But, I've definitely learned how to kind of make use of more midday-ish light. That's when I'll kind of break out the peel apart film and go for a real super high contrast look or black and white. And sometimes I can make it work. Sometimes it doesn't work out at all, but it can get really frustrating for me because I just want to take more than one strong composition in a day. And it's like, I just physically can't. There's not enough time at that that perfect light, especially with the slow cameras I'm using. So
Yeah.
it can get a little frustrating. So I try and sprinkle stuff in throughout the day, but definitely using like different film stocks and kind of leaning in to the challenges of it. It's like, it's high contrast. Okay. Instead of maybe fighting that high contrast, which is kind of the first inclination, how can I tone down the contrast because the light's so contrasty? Maybe I should just lean into it, like shoot reversal film, let the shadows go completely inky black, where there's no detail whatsoever. And then try and find a composition where the shadows become an integral, important part of the composition. You're creating something more graphic, like almost like a poster. Like you see those posters where it's just kind of color blocked.
Yeah.
Big, thick colors and everything. Like maybe lean into that look rather than trying to fight it. And I found that in those situations where I kind of let the challenge of the situation, instead of trying to figure out how to avoid that challenge, just find some way to lean into it and let it really dictate what I have to do in this scenario, I often get better results. Like letting the shadows go completely black was one of the things where I kind of, that freed me up to find compositions where that worked. And then I was starting to get pictures in light that previously I never would have tried.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
So what would be your dream areas to go to? Like, where are you hoping to be able to shoot that you haven't been able to at this point? Where do you want to go?
It's a good question. I actually haven't really thought of much like that in a long time. I used to have, kind of a bucket list thing. There's a lot of national parks, to be honest, but in other parts of the world. But I think when my style kind of changed to this more architecturally minded, I guess, and kind of desert centric and, abandoned buildings. And I don't even like to say abandoned buildings because I much prefer buildings that have life in it and they're currently active and all that. But when it kind of moved towards that style, I almost just want, like, my dream trip is just spending a few days in the shittiest podunk town you can imagine that is barely on a map, and just spending a long time there, learning it and exploring it and taking pictures. And that kind of ends up being my dream spot. And those are hard because they're hard to find. They're not listed. Everyone knows the national parks, but you got to kind of just randomly go through a town and be like, oh man, I could spend a week here. It doesn't make for good trips with the wife, by the way. So that's part of the reason I go solo on these things. It's like, I don't think she wants to spend a week in Blythe, California, like not exactly a fun time. The highest end restaurant there is a Burger King. So
Yeah.
I tend to gravitate towards those things that are kind of, I almost stumble upon. But where I'd really like to go next, though, I would kind of like to explore the Northern California, like far North California, redwoods, and seeing what the towns are like up there. I've done a lot of desert. I really love shooting desert, but it'd be kind of cool to see what I can find of that. I guess what I really like is the human element inside these environments, these landscapes. So one of the things I really like about the desert is like some solo building in the middle of the expansive desert, and you're seeing the landscape of the desert around it, but ultimately the building is the main subject. I would kind of like to see that similar feel, but in very different ecosystems. So snowy environments, the towns in, redwood forests and things like that, just to see what the human element in those areas is like. I think that'd be pretty fun to shoot.
Yeah. Very cool.
Okay.
So we have a portion of our show that we ask for our listeners to send us questions. And we got quite a bit for yours, I think, because you're just sort of well known. So we got a lot of them. So we're not going to go through every single one of those, but appreciate everyone that has sent a question for sure.
Yep.
But we'll definitely, some of these we will definitely go into.
Yeah, and one of them, well, I'll jump in as well.
Yeah.
We've got one that came in from Colton Tompkins Photos, and his question was, what do you think of the current film photography trend of overexposing everything?
Yeah, I hate it. Personally.
Simple enough.
Largely because I understand why it's happening. And so I'll give some backstory on why I'm quite certain it's happening. And that'll give some insight on why I hate it. So I did some work with Fujifilm a little while back, and I went to a convention and did a talk for them and all that. And so I got to know some of the technicians and stuff that work with Fujifilm. And it was kind of funny. I was standing there waiting to go do my talk, and I was hanging out with one of these guys, and they had a scanner there. They had one of their Fuji scanners, and they were scanning people's film for free as kind of a promotional thing. And a roll went through, and the machine kind of started slowing down. You could tell it was having to do something a little different. And he just like stopped. He's like, labs hate when those rolls come in. I was like, what is that? He's like, they're way overexposed. The scanner has to do something different to compensate for those super dense negatives so that they can, actually get an image out of it. And so I already didn't like that trend of things being super bright, because I had this feeling that it was mostly sloppiness and people not realizing that. I get that the picture's coming out technically. What you don't realize is how much the lab is fixing your crap work. Like it, which is fine, I guess, if you're okay with that, but just don't promote it to other people, because I don't want newer photographers coming up thinking like, yeah, as long as you put Portrait 400 at ISO 50, you're going to get great pictures. It's like, no, you're creating horrible negatives that lab is having to fix. And I guess that's fine. I don't know why I have such a problem with it if they're just going to do that forever. But a lot of it is I hate the look of it too. Like it's such a trend look. To me, it's kind of the HDR of analog photography, high dynamic range, which I hate HDR intentional. It's just, it's so unpleasing to the eye. It hurts the eyes. Yeah. And I see these pictures where they've been overexposed, 3 stops, and the highlights almost hurt because there's such a little separation between them, and they get kind of muddied up and flattened out. And I get that that's a look now. And it's kind of especially been associated with wedding photography. So people kind of like that light and airy look, but it's a trend like anything. You look at people's wedding photos from 1987, it's all screen filter, soft focus, lighting a candle, and it's like, diffused and kind of weird stuff. And it's like, oh geez, that just screams 1987, which is fine. But I'm more interested in taking photos that are gonna have a little more lasting appeal and aren't based on a trend, and are actually carefully thought out. And I'm not just overexposing the film knowing that my lab's gonna fix it.
True.
And in terms of a technical reason why it works is, as anyone who's been shooting film a long time knows, it's better to have a denser negative than a thinner negative, all things being equal. So you're better off having an overexposed negative than an underexposed negative. You're better having an underexposed reversal than an overexposed reversal, because you want a thicker film, you want a denser film, because you can actually pull detail out of it. So it's like that little piece of information. Oh, you're better off having a denser negative. You're better off having an overexposed negative. That little kernel of truth, much like a conspiracy theory that has like some kernel of truth, just gets blown into this thing. Oh, I should overexpose everything 3 stops. Yeah. That's what it said. And it's like, no. If you're going to make a mistake, you're better having something a little bit denser. So I tend to advocate for, getting the metering as best as you can in camera. If you have to err one side or the other, you're better off going a little brighter if you're shooting negatives, better off going a little darker if you're shooting reversal. But don't get so sloppy that you're rating Portrait 400 at ISO 50. just because you want
But the tones.
a piece of film. I know, but the tones is like, what you don't understand, you can get great tones with perfect exposure. That's the other thing too, is like people, I've had people point out, it drives me nuts how good your colors come out using an Epson V750. And it's like, a lot of that is I'm very careful with my exposure, so I'm not getting color shifts, because oftentimes the scanner will yield color shifts if your exposure is way off.
True.
And some people are using those color shifts to their advantage, and they're calling it their style, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are doing exactly what I've done many, many times, which is writing off a mistake as, oh yeah, this is style. I meant to do that.
Artistic approach.
Yeah, it makes me think of those
artistic license. Man.
those filters that they put for like digital cameras and cell phones. Is the film filter, and the film filter is just like scratches and dust and dirt, and it's like, and people think a film's supposed to look like that. We're like, no, it was not supposed to look like that. That is not film. But it becomes like it's this little shred of something that, you know, and I think it's a little bit just, they're not super educated on. They just hear like, oh, I'm supposed to, you know, do this with the film, and they don't really know the meaning of why someone even started saying that in the first place. So then it just sort of takes off and becomes the things. We heard that a lot in the lab. We're like, oh yeah, portrait. I underexpose that by like quite a bit. But why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Because
why?
I heard you do that with that film. That's what you're supposed to do with
YouTube
it.
told me to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
You need to know why you're doing it. Don't just do it.
Yeah.
It's exposure is important. Well, that's one of the things that we go over. It is pretty much the most important thing with our basic intro classes is, you know, we don't care about your framing, all that other stuff, to get the mechanics down, get your exposure right. Your exposure is I think, in my opinion, the most important part of taking a photo. Everything else will fall into place as you become more creative. But exposure is a very technical thing that should be done properly.
Well, I've always taught it that way too, starting with the technical exposure stuff, largely because there's nothing more frustrating than having a creative vision in mind that you can't execute because you don't have the tools to do it. But if you get the tools first, then you can work on the creative, and you'll be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve as long as you have those tools. But if you have all these creative ideas first and you don't know how to achieve it, it can be so discouraging that you just move on from photography. So making sure you understand the tools, at least at a basic level, to where you can actually make some of the things happening that you're imagining, then I think you're more likely to stay in it, because you're not getting so frustrated by the tools not giving you what you want. And then you can you're freed up to work on the creative part a little bit.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty solid. Our next question comes from Silver Halide Flowers on Instagram. And their question is, advice for photographers trying to get more critical reviews of their work.
Which we kind of touched a little bit.
Yeah, I touched a little bit on that, but I'll expand on it. So I don't personally seek out any critiques of my work, and I stopped doing that a pretty long time ago. And I generally don't recommend people do it. And that's not a popular thought for the majority of the photography community, I think. But I've come to, I guess, respect the artistic process in a different way, which is it kind of needs to work itself out. And I think getting other people's artistic journey infused into yours can just really confuse things and muddy the waters and kind of veer your own creative path off of its proper course. I'm a huge advocate of getting inspiration from things not related to photography, especially music and movies and books and stories and anything, landscapes. Like, get inspiration, let that guide your creativity. But going to another photographer and saying, what should I have done differently on this? I think that's just a bad idea all around. First off, everybody's messed up.
Yep.
Like, everybody has preconceived ideas of what things should be. Everyone has their own biases. Everyone has that urge to like be the one ushering someone up to the next level. Like everyone kind of wants to have that little badge of honor. It's like, yeah, let me help you, kid.
Yeah.
Like even if you tone it down pretty well, like I generally don't have much of that in me, but I'll still catch myself like wanting to be the one that's, oh yeah, here's how you should do it. In fact, I just went off on a whole rant on exposure and how you shouldn't overexpose. So I obviously do it even.
Yeah.
So when you go to a photographer and ask them, what should I have done differently on this picture? Just realize you're at least temporarily taking their creative path.
True.
So you're on their journey.
Yeah.
If that's the journey you want to take, fine. But if you want to be on your own journey, it's difficult to do because you don't get a lot of feedback on your work. And so you can sometimes not know if you're doing the right thing and if your work is actually any good. But if you kind of just not let anyone else's opinion steer things, and you just really shoot the things that you want to see, like you want to see that print. That's all that matters, is you want to see that print. I found it to be a much more pure, creative path, I guess you could say. Whenever I talk about this stuff, it's always hard to talk about because it sounds so hippy dippy, airy fairy stuff. It's not like a path and a journey and all that. And in that sense, it's just you have a series of steps you're going to be going through in your life to get to the next picture and to get to develop your style and to move up as a photographer. And I just don't see other people's critiques as being an important part of that. There's so many other things that are an important part of that. Going out and shooting a lot, being honest with yourself when you don't like one of your photos, letting yourself shoot the things that you want to shoot, even when you think other people are going to hate it. I think that's probably the most important one.
Yeah,
and I pointed this out before, so I won't belabor it too much. But when I started shooting these like dusk buildings and desert scenes and all that stuff, I was convinced no one was going to like these photos because I'd been getting so many attaboys from my previous work, which was the high saturation sunsets down at the beach with the silky water. So that was all I knew as getting a positive reaction out of people. So I thought, well, if I start shooting these buildings, like who wants a picture of a freaking donut shop? No one's going to want that. But I let myself shoot it simply because I wanted to shoot it and simply because I wanted to see that picture. And as soon as I started doing that, that's when people actually started caring about my work. So you just have to shoot what feels right and maybe take it easy on the critiques from other people. Unless it's a technical thing, obviously. Like people ask me, why do you think this is out of focus? I thought I did everything right on focus. I'll help them with that. Yeah. But if it's like, what do you think of the composition? That's your journey, man. I'm not.
Fair enough.
Yeah, your true personality is going to show through your work. So
yeah,
it's best to stay true to who you are.
In a sense, instead of getting a review from someone else, you should be able to review your own work, and you should find what you're doing wrong through inspiration from others and how you feel you can improve, I guess.
Yeah. Have confidence in yourself to know, like, if you like it, that's what matters. And if you keep going with that, other people are going to come along too, because it's going to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That confidence has to build for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're starting out, because you shouldn't have much confidence when you're starting
out.
No.
You should think everything is terrible.
Not good.
Terrible.
I shouldn't even have much confidence right now.
Yeah, I worry.
Just having that little bit of like, well, I definitely don't know everything yet.
Yeah.
So, but learning through doing, I think, is probably the best way, rather than, asking in a forum,
right?
Online, what I could have done with this. Who knows who's answering that?
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
Ansel Adams, for example. I mean, he didn't get critique from other people. I mean, maybe people who were helping him print, but he did what he wanted to do. He knew what he wanted. He felt it, and he achieved what he did with his stuff. So you just got to do what you feel's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. We've got our last question will be from Fitzpal
01
01 on Instagram, and Their question is, when is the next EP out? Love your work, Nick. So
Thank you, Fitzpal. Yeah, so the EP, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the extended play. That's my analog photography streaming series, I guess you could call it, which I sell on my website. But the response on that has been fantastic. People have been so supportive. I've gotten not a single word of disappointment on it, so I'm very happy about that. So I'm definitely going to be doing more. I was planning on doing one this fall, but then this gallery showing came up, and that's gonna take up my time, unfortunately. So I'm hoping maybe in the winter, maybe the late winter, as winter goes into spring, I might be able to do one. Or if I can get my act together, I probably won't be able to just because of the holidays and everything. If I can get my act together, it'd be cool to do one like early November, but we'll have to see. I will tease this though. A very generous student of mine sent me a care package, and I opened it up, and it was a bunch of dry plate photography stuff. So zebra and so glass plate, dry plate photography. And I've never done that before. I am super excited to try it because I think it has just the look that I like to incorporate in a lot of my my landscapey stuff. So I think on the next EP, I'm gonna have that be an integral part of it, is me learning how to use that and getting compositions on it for the first time. And it's a really, I'm pretty intimidated by it because it's heavily influenced by UV levels, and I've never metered factoring that in before. So I could be wasting a lot of expensive glass plates learning how to freaking factor in the UV index to my metering process.
can't really just meter UV.
Yeah,
it's not quite
yes.
that simple.
Yeah.
I have to pull up a weather app and be like, okay, the UV index today is, and these things are insane. It comes with like tips on how to expose, or you can get it from their website. And it's all like, it's all based on like, okay, this time of year in Romania, at this time of day. And I'm looking at them like, how the F am I going to translate this to a picture in Arizona? Like it's going to be a learning process. So, I'm excited to do that on the next one. And, one of the dilemmas, I know I'm talking about this way too much, but one of the dilemmas on the next EP is I don't really like to do them in the winter because there's so little time in the day to take pictures, because the nights are so long. So, but it might actually work out well for this because I'm hoping I can develop these things while I'm out there, and I'll just get a motel room and use the evening to develop the film or to develop the plates and, talk through what happened for the day and then go out shooting in the middle of the day. So yeah, super long, typical Nick Carver, overly explained answer. Hopefully this winter will be the next one.
Wonderful.
Looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah. So
Yes.
what's in the future? What can people look forward to? What are you looking forward to? I know you have your show, but beyond that, like, what are you kind of looking forward to doing or have coming up?
Right now those two things are the biggest in the forefront of my mind. A little bit more long term, I really want to release an online course about two of them. I want to do one on prepping files for print. So the process I do for getting files ready for printing. So the sharpening process and resizing it and all that. Be a real short course on that I would like to do. I'd like to do another one kind of explaining RGB curves and color and getting colors right in your scan, and monitor calibration, all that kind of stuff. So I'm planning on doing a couple courses on that at some point. But I've definitely learned to not plan too far ahead because those plans end up changing into something I never expected. So the art show, the next EP, and then a couple of courses I think are next on my docket.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
A lot
wonderful.
of things. I just wanted to give a shout out to our buddy David Venezia, who
Yes.
he's a good friend of ours. Obviously, we talk about him pretty much all the time. He started his own little dark room up in Utah. So if anybody is listening and is cruising through Salt Lake City, be sure to give David a holler and see what he's up to. He's probably in his dark room or doing something with cars.
Yeah,
But,
you were on the top of his list.
Yeah.
We had asked You ask some friends, like, who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to listen to? Like the film community that we know, like, who would you like to have on the podcast? And you were on right up on the top.
So
Dave's
I
list.
appreciate
So
that.
we wanted to give
yeah.
a shout out to Dave.
Yeah, and he actually sent you a pack of film. So
Yes,
hopefully you have
he
some fun with
buttered me up with some Type 52. So
Nice. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got like a crazy amount of film kind of stuffed away.
Yeah.
He's a little squirrel with film. A lot of us are.
Yeah.
But yeah.
yeah.
So hopefully you have some fun with that.
He may have
that film.
the big fridge of film instead of the mini fridge of film.
Deep freeze.
The deep
Yeah.
freezer. This is Phil.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for being on with us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking
Thanks
the time.
for having me.
Of course, we'll include all the links in the bio or in the show notes. But what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to get in contact or follow you?
If they want to find me on YouTube, it's Nick Carver Photo. My website's nickcarverphoto.com and Instagram, Nick Carver.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Simple
absolutely.
enough.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you, Nick, for being on. Hopefully we can chat again here pretty soon. And to everybody who's listening, thank you for joining us for another episode. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Embark on a captivating journey into the world of analog photography with Phoenix Film Revival, an inclusive community darkroom dedicated to the preservation and art of film. Join one of our engaging workshops, led by myself, Daniel, and my wife, Stacy, where you'll learn the techniques, tips, and tricks to get the most out of your film and alternative process photography. If you're passionate about photography and want to support our mission, consider becoming a valued member of our Patreon community. By joining, you'll gain exclusive access to behind-the-scenes content, early releases, and a community of fellow photography enthusiasts. Let's continue our journey together and unlock the full potential of our photographic future. Visit our Patreon page and become a supporter of Phoenix Film Revival today. Visit patreon.com/PHX Film Revival. That's patreon.com/PHX Film Revival. Thanks.